So I made it back home from Vegas, and I'm just kind of thinking about the fights from last night, and thinking about, in particular, the Holly Holm fight versus Ketlen Vieira, the Eric Anders versus Jung Young Park, and to a much lesser degree, Ponzinibbio versus Pereira. In my opinion, honestly, Pereira won the fight. It was a close fight. It was competitive, but for as good as Santiago did at the end of round number 2, I don't believe that he had done enough to warrant him getting the victory over Michel Pereira, who has now won 5 in a row and is a true threat. He'll be ranked now, and 2 years ago, that kid would not have gotten that done. He would have quit on himself. So I think we do need to really give credit to Michel Pereira, as he is consistently showing evolution. But let's get to the Anders fight versus Jung Young Park, and let's get to the Holly Holm versus Ketlen Vieira fight. A lot of people, I put a tweet up last night saying I was wrong. Park won the fight. When in reality, I thought and called the fight as if I thought Eric Anders was winning. And I think Paul Felder agreed. I think Jon Anik agreed. John is very professional, so he was much more in the middle of the commentary. He's a real pro, and when he sees things, he really does manage what he says much better than most of us. So it may not have seemed as if he agreed as much as we did, but dude's a pro's pro. He never oversteps one way or the other. You'll never catch Jon Anik slipping. But in the Anders fight, Jung Young Park was landing damaging strikes. He really was. When he would hit Eric Anders, you would see a reaction. You would see Anders' head go back when he would hit him. You would see it take an effect on him. So I get it. But Anders was landing also, and he also was controlling the clinch. Guys, this is where I don't really understand what I'm watching in terms of the fight. Anders fight, Holm fight. Both had so much control time against the side of the octagon that I don't know how they are losing the fight. And I think probably the most famous instance in which that happened was Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal, the first fight. If there is no value in clinch control, then how did Kamaru win that fight so dominantly the first time he fought Masvidal? And I'm not saying dominant in terms of damage. I'm talking so dominantly across the scorecards, because very few judges scored the rounds for Jorge Masvidal outside of round number 1. What they did was give value and give credit to Kamaru Usman for putting Jorge Masvidal in a position that he did not want to go to for extended periods of time. That is where I think the judging gets fucked up a little bit. Is because Ketlen Vieira does not want to be against the side of the octagon being held by Holly Holm. Regardless of what you think in terms of the damage. She doesn't want to be there. If she had her choice, she would either have Holly Holm against the side of the fence, or she would be out in the center striking. But instead, she's controlled for more than 10 minutes. And I think Andre Pederneiras' reactions show what he thought or how he thought the fight was playing out. But once again, it's on the judges. Once again, they keep on making these mistakes, I would think, or we just don't know what the hell we're watching. It's like we don't know what we're watching. One judge in the Pereira fight had 30-27 Pereira. It was so clear that Ponzinibbio won at least one round. But one judge scored at 30-27, which was, it's crazy. It's like, how do you get that wrong? There was a fight a little bit ago where I thought it was all wrong. In one girl won, and I was like, wow, it's impossible. The Holm fight last night was wrong. I don't know how you find, and this is no knock on Ketlen Vieira, right? So when I state these opinions, it's not a direct attack on any one in particular. This is just me saying what I feel and where I believe the blame resides. And the blame resides in the judging. It really does. And there's a lot of times in which we are calling the fights and we get lost talking about the judging, what we think the scorecards will be, and how the fight is going to look at the end. And the reality is, when we do that, we are not doing our job. We aren't. My job is not to tell you who's winning the rounds. My job is to tell you, how does a fighter get from point A to point B? How do they do this, and the other? How do you manage what goes on inside of that octagon from fighter one's perspective to fighter two's perspective? How does fighter one get his hand raised? What does fighter two need to do in order to not allow that to happen, and vice versa? But because the judging has become such a main topic of conversation, now we are spending time discussing that because we are so unsure about what it's going to look like at the end of the fight. Last night was probably the most clear instance in which I felt like I did not know what I'm watching, I guess, because I was on the wrong side of two fights that I thought were going in one direction. They didn't. And honestly, guys, I'll let you behind the curtain a little bit, breaking the fourth wall, as they say. When we're on the wrong side of the commentary, our producers are not afraid to tell us, I believe you're on the wrong side of the commentary. I think this fight is going different than what you're watching. And then I'm like, oh, well, what am I missing, right? Am I missing things in close? Like, we are not just given free reign. We can talk about the fights as we see them, but there are people that will tell us, guys, I think you're wrong. Now, it's up to you to do with it as you see. You don't have to agree. But as a person that's watching it, as a person that's at home, not at home necessarily, but in the back, but as a person that's watching you guys call this fight, I think you're wrong. Obviously, we can't take any offense to it. We just sit up there, and you got to start to watch it with a little more clear eye, a little more clear view of what you're seeing out there. Nothing's wrong with it. Now, there's a guy that works for the UFC. He's the executive producer of Talent and all that. Very, very sharp guy. I mean, literally one of the smartest producers they have in all of sports, I believe. And he had this idea like, hey, maybe we should get a better understanding. So now we're all going back to school. We're all going back to school to try to understand what judging and what officiating is supposed to be. And I could not be happier for it. Because they do it in the NBA. They do it in the NFL. They do it everywhere. And this guy goes, we're one of the top sports leagues in the world. It's time for us to go back to school. And I hope that when I go back to this judges seminar, when I go back to this officiating seminar, I can actually get a better understanding of what I'm supposed to be looking for out there. Because as a guy that's done it at the highest level and won at the highest level, I obviously don't know. And from the tweets and the responses, there are a lot of people that don't know. Because we all thought Holly Holm won last night. A large majority of the people around the world thought that Eric Anders won last night. If I'm just looking at the comments, I'm looking at the responses to my tweet, more people are on the side of where I'm sitting opposed to the only three scorecards that matter. Those three. The verdict scorecards all scored it for those same two fighters. But the three people that matter saw it differently. So we got to get a better understanding of what we're supposed to see. And guess what? When I go back and I do that, now I can convey that to you. The message that I received in the seminar that I am now so excited about. Guys, I hated school. But now I'm so excited about this seminar because I want to know. I want to know what I am watching. So then I can help you understand. Because for as long as we've been watching mixed martial arts, guys, I guess we have no idea what the hell we are seeing. Because the judges are seeing something completely different. You know, honestly, you know what else? Judges used to talk to me when I go to fights. They don't anymore. They literally ignore me. Like, I don't know the last time I've spoken to a judge. The officials are great still. Thick skin. Jason Herzog actually asked me last night what we would like to go over when we get to the seminar, because he's going to be one of the people that is going to kind of be leading it. I told him exactly what I need to know. Are you getting points for defending takedowns? Because some people may point to Eric Anders didn't secure as many as he shot. Well, Carla Esparza didn't either, and she still won the fight somehow. I know Rose didn't do much. I know. Now, we're not going to go back because there's no reason to go back to that. But what are we doing here? You put a guy against... I mean, I held Frank Mir against Sabathia for 14 minutes, and I won 30-27 across the board. What changed? That's what I told him. Those are the things I want to know. Daniel Cormier, 2-division champion, UFC, every Strikeforce, all that. That guy who has done this at that level wants to know. And another thing, if you guys are betting with the way that this officiating has been, save your damn money. Because how could you ever feel confident enough in someone whenever what happens at the end of the fight is so sporadic? Those are my thoughts. Great night of fights. It was fun. Chidi Njokuani with the elbow, sick. I thought Holly Holm at 40 years old. She's a bit slower. I mean, that's very evident. She's not as explosive as she was before. But to fight Ketlen Vieira in the way that she did and win the fight, that's off to Holly. Michelle Pereira, like I said earlier, dude is the real deal, man. And if he continues to improve and evolve, he can be a potential challenger at some point in his career. So like, subscribe, and look forward to more content coming up as we get into UFC Singapore. More golf with guys like Justin Gaethje and some of my friends from around the world of mixed martial arts and sports, and a few other interesting things that we have coming up. So like, subscribe, tell your friends. Until the next time, I will see you guys. Peace.